Yo, yo, it's the Red Blue Podcast crew. Reviewing flicks, both old and new. Red and blue, not political. Nah, man, chill. It was Marvel versus DC till we lost that thrill. Don't stress the episode, don't ask the season. We double up franchises, don't ask for a reason. He's got rules that nobody gets. His takes on movies, they're wild as it gets. He's got Superbald Mac and Gray by his side, trying to keep it sane while they're in for the ride. These measures are out of control, but in the end he's got the final role. Yeah, that Blue Podcast, come check the scene. Movies old and new, know what I mean?
And we are live talking about movies once again. Welcome to the show. How are you, Superbald?
I'm doing okay, considering it's been a tough week.
I feel you, man. I feel you. So I think I might be wrong on that, but I think you are the one that chose Groundhog Day. Did you chose?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, I did.
amazing. Why?
It's been a favorite of mine for a long time. I saw it when it came out on VHS and saw it many, many times after that on cable, and I have it on DVD. And my sister and we actually watch it every year on February 2nd.
That's charming. I wish I had that kind of movies to share with my siblings and all. Anyhow, thank you for sharing that movie. So now I guess I will let you start on that. What did you think of Groundhog Day?
Actually, my notes are on a different computer. I've just realized. So if you'll grant me 2 minutes, I will have that transferred here because I can't remember. If I
Okay.
don't have it in front of me, I won't remember.
Okay, well, perfect. I will start then to give you enough
Okay,
time
sure.
to search for that.
Go ahead.
So I really enjoyed that movie, and surprisingly enough, um, that was a fun experience. Even if that movie is a bit older than me, that was a fun experience. This movie was indeed before my times, but yeah, they. I think that's one of the first few movies that really had a time loop. I cannot think of any other movies prior that.
I think there actually was one movie that came out before this. I think it was called 1201 or something like that. I think it was a TV movie, but the first real big major movie, yeah, I think this is the first one.
And that was smart because that gave a lot of time and room for the main character to grow and change, which is the point of a good movie. Character growth, and he got so much of it in this movie. I have no issues with the entire thing. That was a very fun experience. Here's are a few things I enjoyed. Um, the main character planning to leave his job, that was something that was really early in the movie. It was like, maybe I will find something else. So you're like, maybe
Well,
you got
he thought he
thinking.
was going to move on to because he was just like sort of like a regional weatherman. He thought he was going to go national, as he called it, or whatever the term being, that he was going to go, go to a major TV network or something.
And yeah, that's interesting. And the main character arrogance throughout the entire movie was enjoyable so much. It's like that guy is so annoying because he thinks he's above everyone else. That's hilarious. I liked it. It was well depicted through his exchange with pretty much everyone. And that's still early in the movie because parts of his growth is no longer being that by the end. It was also funny how the main character was lying to be impressive when buying drinks to his coworker. Um, and that was before the time loop thing, I believe. Or actually, that's when he started to date her like every new day he would get, because Groundhog Day is basically the guy lives the same day over and over again,
Hmm.
and he try new things. And another very funny thing was in the middle of the movie, I think was it, but in the middle of the movie, he was trying to end himself because he thought that would be the answer, or he got tired and such. And that was kind of dark humor that I kind of enjoyed because, and they were playing around the fact that he wanted to off himself. That's dark. Um, that's very dark. Even if it's played on a light-hearted way, it's dark.
Yeah.
Um, and it might be okay being followed by cars blowing up was kind of hilarious. Um, what else? The main character realizing he didn't deserve someone like your love interest was kind of cool. That was like somewhere in the middle of the movie, and then part of the third act was him trying to be a better person by trying to get to know others and trying to help others, giving money, giving attention, and that was fun. That's an interesting movie where they had so many time loops, but it didn't feel like it overplayed it because they were trying to do new things almost each time we would get a time loop. There was that romance aspect, that depressing aspect, and that aspect I want to be a better person, and that's just fun experience. And I didn't see that movie prior, so that was really my first viewing of it. And I feel like if I had seen that movie more often, I would see more things. Um, and the morning after Jill stayed home, it was well shown how the main character changed. He started caring for others, and it
Mhm.
the superficial aspect that was really like changed, and that was a fun experience. I really liked that movie. The main character, was the main reason to enjoy that experience, and how they used that time loop aspect without getting um, boring. Because you could get a time loop movie being very boring
Mhm.
and tired. I mean, what can you do? What can you do? So that was my thoughts on Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day. I don't know what's going on with me. Groundhog Day. What did you think of that movie?
As I said, this has been a favorite of mine for a long time. Uh, yeah, it's hard for me to describe why I like it so much, but it's a great movie. Part of it, I guess, is just nostalgia because I've seen it so many times. Um, but yeah, this it's definitely a feel good movie type of thing, and there's a happy ending, and
Yeah,
uh, and the character growth of Bill Murray's character, from being a selfish a hole to becoming, a better person. Um, yeah, but yeah, this movie, great cast. Bill Murray, this is one of his best films, and this is kind of when his career was really, I think, at its peak because his career kind of went into a decline for a bit after that, and then he came back, and then it kind of rebounded when he maybe 10 years after this when he did Lost in Translation. And I think this is one of the movies that did kind of help him get out of the mold of being just like a funny manic guy, that there's more, there was, that he had layers to him, that he could do more drama. um so yeah, this was the thing is that what happens in this movie, with the groundhog, this is real. Um, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, is a real place. Punxsutawney Phil is real. I think he's played by he's been embodied by different groundhogs over the years. But this thing, they actually do this every year on February 2nd with the groundhog in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. However, this was not filmed in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. Because the real one, I've seen pictures online, it's very, very rural compared to where it was filmed. And Gobbler's Knob, where they have the whole groundhog celebration, is very small. So this was actually filmed in a place called Woodstock, Illinois, a small town. I don't think very far from Chicago. Um, Uh, yeah, this was written by Danny Rubin, a guy named Danny Rubin. He was inspired by Anne Rice novels, especially the one about the vampire Lestat, about essentially an immortal teenager, and also about men who are in a state of arrested development. I don't know if you know what that means. There was the sitcom Arrested Development, but the term means essentially people who have not outgrown their adolescence. They're adults, but have not matured. Their maturity has not progressed.
I know
Um,
many people like that in real life. That's
yeah,
tragic.
I think we all do. Um, and yeah, he sold another script I think the year before this came out, so he kind of got a bit of clout, and he was able to sell this one. And this was directed by Harold Ramis, who uh, was in Ghostbusters with uh, Bill Murray. He played Harold Ramis played Egon Spengler, the one with the glasses. He actually has a cameo in Groundhog Day as well as the doctor when Bill Murray's character goes to see the doctor to make sure he's not going crazy or have a brain tumor or something that's causing him to hallucinate or something. Um, So they were able to shop this around, but no studio wanted to commit to it because in the script, it it didn't explain why he was stuck in the time loop. They wanted to keep it unexplained, and I think that's better. So just to be able to get it greenlit, they actually ended up writing something in the script just to appease the studio, and they're like, we'll place this so far into the shooting schedule that we won't be able to film it, or if we have to film it, we'll just cut it during editing. I think the backstory was something like uh, a former lover of Bill Murray's character, who also happens to be a gypsy, puts a curse on him because he pissed her off or something. She put a curse on him to try to make him a better person. Um, Anyways, that was never filmed. Thankfully, I think the movie is better the way it is, leaving it ambiguous as to and unexplained as to why he gets stuck in this time loop.
That's interesting because again, it's kind of up to interpretation. Like my guess is since they didn't explain it, I was like, maybe it was for him to learn the lesson he learned.
Exactly, which I think is why it's better that way that they left it unexplained. You make your own interpretation of it. Um, the script did to go through various iterations, though. At one point early in the script, it was actually supposed Phil with Bill Murray's character and Andy McDowell, his love interest Rita. They were both supposed to be reliving the same day, like they were both aware of the day repeating. And the movie was supposed to start with them already in the loop. So that got changed. A few other things got changed.
That's a
That
good thing.
Yeah,
I don't
and
think that would be
the
as good if they went that route. I don't think it would be as good.
yeah, and it actually ended up being a pretty difficult movie to shoot. Apparently, not just because of the technical things about refilming multiple sequences exactly the same. I was actually pretty impressed in some scenes where, especially the scene where he's walking in the morning, where he's walking to where they're gonna be doing the thing with the groundhog, and he runs into his the guy who knew him from high school, the insurance salesman. Like the background, the people are all doing the same thing, the same cars are moving. It's really well done. Like it's beat for beat, all these different takes. So that was difficult, but the difficulties more came also from the script got changed a lot. So things got thrown out, things that were filmed got thrown out, things had to be refilmed. And there was apparently a lot of clashes between Bill Murray and the director Harold Ramis. They were close friends. They had been since the late '70s. They had done a couple of movies together, Ghostbusters, but apparently they had a massive falling out because of this movie. Um, and they were Harold Ramis wanted to focus more on the romantic comedy aspect of it, and apparently Bill Murray was wanted to focus more on sort of the existential, contemplative part of the movie. And yeah, so and this basically ended their friendship. They did they they apparently not did not speak for like 20 years. They only made up. Uh, they only actually buried the hatchet and made up a couple of months before Harold Ramis died of cancer. Um,
That's sad.
yeah. Um, and initially, when it came out, it had some mixed reviews. It did well at the box office, though. Apparently, Bill Murray himself hated the finished product because he felt that it concentrated too much on the comedy aspect of it. I personally find that it's a good balance of comedy and the more contemplative part of the movie. Um, he has since changed his mind over the years, and he says a lot of people over the years have come up to him and tell him how much they love the movie and how much it may have helped them in different ways. So he's changed his opinion, and also the reviews, like the critical consensus on the movie has done nothing but improve since then. It's become a massive classic. Um, I read somewhere a long time ago that apparently this movie is a favorite among people in the military because apparently for sometimes when people are out on deployment or they're deployed to different bases around the world, the monotony and the routine is just like, it makes every day feel like it's the same thing over and over and again. And apparently, so because of that, this movie has become sort of like a favorite among military personnel. um, and Groundhog Day has sort of become shorthand, an expression for anything that's like repetitive. I've even used it myself a couple of times in that context. Remember a few years ago at a job, there was we did some that we worked on this big project, and then we had to go in and basically redo the whole thing. And I remember saying, "My God, this is Groundhog Day," and everybody knew what I meant. And yeah, and it's, as you said, it was like probably like it's, as far as I know, it's the first big Hollywood movie that dealt with the concept of a time loop. There was also years later The Edge of Tomorrow, and there was other movies with that concept. Um, but yeah, I think this was the first one. Um, I was reading online, some people have tried to speculate or figure out exactly how long he was stuck in that time loop. On screen, I think we see roughly about uh, the days that we see and that are mentioned. I think it was about 40 days or something like that. But some people have speculated because of all the things that he gets good at, piano, all the ice sculpting, all kinds of things, and all the trial and error he's probably done for this or that. Some people, there's estimates that he isn't stuck in the loop for 34 years, 40 years, 200 years. Harold Ramis himself said that if you take the Buddhist interpretation of it, in Buddhism, it takes 10,000 years for your soul to move on to the next level. So he said it's quite possible he was stuck in that loop for 10,000 years. Um, yeah. Well, that's pretty much all I have to say. As I said, it's been one of my favorites for a very long time.
I feel you 100%. And there's one thing I did like a lot that I kind of forgot to mention, and that was the music. The music was
Yeah,
enjoyable a lot
true.
and memorable as
Hmm.
well. And that's a great thing. And now, because you're kind of done talking about that, I will share my grade out of 10. And
Hmm.
it's kind of predictable because I have no issue whatsoever. So, I will give it 10 out of 10. What about you? What would be your grade out of 10 for Groundhog Day?
For me, this is like, I think this is the first time I've ever given a a grade like this here, but this is gonna be like 9.9 out of 10 for me.
Near perfection. I
Yeah.
feel you. I feel you 100%.
There's one thing in my notes here. It's more just of a trivia thing, but the guy in the movie who is when they're doing the thing with the groundhog, he's the one reading the scroll and says, "Oh, the groundhog sees his shadow." And later we see him a few more times in the movie, and at one point, Bill Murray prevents this guy from choking on something. That is a Brian Doyle Murray, who is Bill Murray's brother in real life.
That's interesting.
He's an actor himself. He's been in a lot of things, and he often has small roles in Bill Murray movies.
Wow. That's interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
Now the next movie for tonight. Sleepless in Seattle. And this time around it was me trying to find a movie that would be a good fit for Groundhog Day. And that was like, you know what? It's a romance movie and
No, I think
maybe it
it's
fits.
I think it fits. It's a very different type of romantic comedy, but it fits.
Yeah, it fits very well, and I did happen to see the Seattle after Groundhog Day, and I was like, you know what? These are fun movies. The '90s were actually very nice, even if they
Mm.
were kind of a bit before my time. Well, not that long, but just a little bit, just enough to
Well, I
say
was
it's before my time.
teenager for most of the '90s, and sometimes a lot of these movies make me nostalgic. Sometimes
I feel you. So I will ask you, what did you think of Sleepless in Seattle?
I had seen this a few times way back when it came out on cable. We had the movie network at my house, so saw this movie a few times whenever it was on there. Um, didn't make. I remember it being a huge hit. But I didn't remember make a huge impression on me at the time. Just I think I was about 12 or something when this came out, and just I don't know. And I've never been that big on romantic comedies, but this is the first time I had seen it in a very long time, probably about 30 years, maybe. Um, and wow, there was a lot I had forgotten about this movie. Um, this year, the year this came out, 1993, this is basically the year where Tom Hanks became a megastar. I mean, he was already well known at the time, and he had done a lot of comedies, but this is where basically he became a megastar and started shifting more into drama as well. Because the same year that this came out, he did a movie called Philadelphia, where he played a gay man dying of AIDS, and he actually his first Oscar for that. The year after this, Forrest Gump came out, for which he also won an Oscar. So this is basically the year where he became a megastar. Um, and no, he was really good in this movie. I think he was perfectly cast, and I had forgotten a lot of the actors in this movie. Meg Ryan, I knew she was in this, and this kind of cemented her a bit as the queen of romantic comedies. But some of the other actors in this movie, David Hyde Pierce, who I think played Meg Ryan's brother. Um, this came out the same year that the sitcom Frasier premiered, which became a big hit, and he was on that sitcom as well. He played Niles Crane, so this was like a big year for him. Um, and funnily enough, in the sitcom Frasier takes place in Seattle as well, and the character of Frasier is a talk radio host. So a lot of coincidences with this movie. Um, Rob Reiner, who played he was the older bearded guy who was like friends with Tom Hanks' character. He's directed a lot of movies, acted as well in the '70s. He was on a mega sitcom called All in the Family. Um, Bill Pullman, who played Meg Ryan's fiance, he was starting to get well known. He was in Spaceballs and a bunch of other movies. 2 years after this, or 3 years after this, he played the president in Independence Day and became a mega star that for a while after that. Victor Gabor as well. Rosie O'Donnell. This is actually only the second movie she had ever been in. She was mostly a comedian, and then later she had a talk show. Um, The child actors didn't really do much after, but I thought they were good. Um, it did. This movie did suffer from a thing that happened in a lot of movies back then, and still does. Kids who don't talk like kids, they talk like adults. There was a lot of that in this, but I thought the child actors were capable. I'm, as I've said on this channel before, and you have, and other people have had. I'm not a big fan of child actors a lot of the time, but this was made when they actually, I think, put in more effort into casting good child actors instead of just relying on nepotism and casting the children of other actors. Um, this was written and directed by the late Nora Ephron. She was essential for like she basically dominated romantic comedies for most of the late 80s and 90s. She wrote and directed a lot of them, and I think this is basically what cemented her as like the queen of making rom-coms. Um, few things. One thing that kind of hit hard for me, just because um, I actually this weekend suffered a loss. My dog had to be put down. I'm not equating the loss of a pet to the loss of a person, but it still can, the loss
That's
of a pet.
hard. Dogs are amazing.
Yeah, and for various reasons I'm not going to get into here. I had actually not seen him in a while because him and his mom, the, the, him and his dog mom actually live on the other side of the country. So I couldn't even be there for it. I did get to talk. I did get to say goodbye to him over the phone though. But anyways, the beginning of the movie when they're at the funeral for the mother and what Tom Hanks said, nothing. There's no reason, and there's nothing anybody could do. It isn't fair. It just happens. And if you start asking why, you'll go crazy. And that actually cut deep for me, honestly, just because of the timing. Because my dog had to be, it was put down on Sunday, and I watched this last night, Monday.
Oh
So
my.
just because of the timing, it cut deep. Um, his wanting to move away and get a fresh start after a loss, I can relate to. I've never had to do that, but I've known people who've done that, and um, relating to the mother of the dog that I've lost, that's one of the reasons she lives on the other side of the country after a uh, um, not necessarily, not a loss of a person, but you know um a major setback in her life. She wanted to move somewhere else and get a fresh start. I can relate to that. I've had that feeling too. I've never actually moved away very far, but I've had that feeling too. And a few times I've sort of made a mini reboot in my life after something difficult. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think a lot of people have done something like that in their life. Um, yeah, so this movie takes place in Seattle. There was a time, especially in the early '90s, especially the year this came out, Seattle sort of was like the epicenter of pop culture. Obviously, in the early '90s, grunge music was big. That started in Seattle. Uh, this movie takes place in Seattle. Also, the show that I mentioned earlier, Frasier, which was a spinoff of Cheers, which became a massive sitcom hit, takes place in Seattle as well. Um, Around this time was also the massive rise of Starbucks, which started in Seattle. It was sort of like the epicenter of like pop culture. Yeah, I just remember just Seattle, everything being Seattle at the time this came out. Um, there's one thing I noticed while watching, and actually I didn't even notice it at first. I rewinded the movie just because I had missed something because I had gotten up to get something to drink and I had forgotten to pause it, and so I actually rewound it a little too far, and I resaw a scene that I had already seen, but there was a detail I had not noticed the first time around. Um, because at one point, um, Tom Hanks' character, he's talking about his late wife, and he said something like she could take an apple and peel it into one long peel or something like that. And the scene that I rewatched, Meg Ryan's character, she like gets up in the middle of the night because she can't sleep, and she goes to the fridge and gets an apple, and she sits down and she peels it exactly that way. Um, which sort of, it's a subtle thing, and they don't draw too much attention to it, which is good. Another case of showing don't tell, which I always appreciate. Um, as I've mentioned here in this episode and others, I'm not a big um, romantic comedy guy, but I really appreciated this movie. I wasn't sure how well it would hold up. There's some things in it that haven't aged well, but I really liked this movie, and because uh, it's so unlike other romantic comedies, it does not follow the formula at all, and it breaks the mold completely. Like these two people do end up together, but for the vast majority of the movie, they don't see each other. They only meet at the end, um, which is it's I don't know if that ever been done before, maybe, and I don't think it's been done since. And apparently, they had a hard time getting this movie approved for that reason. Um, but I think it was a brilliant strategy. A few things I can relate to just because of personal experience. Bill Pullman's character, who was the Meg Ryan's fiance, him not wanting to be someone she settles for, not being wanting to be somebody's second choice. I can relate to that. I've kind of been in that situation before. Um, a lot of people I think can relate to that. One thing that happened, and I did not buy for a second. I'm like, this would not happen in real life. The scene where Tom Hanks and his son, they take his girlfriend to the airport, and then Meg Ryan's character comes out like right next to them, and she does not see him. He sees her, but she's looking around. She's like maybe, I don't know, 4 feet, 3 feet away from him, and she doesn't notice him. I'm like, yeah, I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. But eh, about my only real gripe with the movie. In a lot of ways, it is very much a product of its time, though. But in some aspects, maybe haven't aged as well. Um, I know that some people who've gone back and watched this movie have sort of accused it of stalkerish behavior on the part of Meg Ryan's character.
Fact.
I'm reluctantly have to agree, but yeah, um, different times. It's not that I'm condoning behavior like that. And back then, let's say back then, it was a lot harder to do than it is now. Nowadays, it's frighteningly easy to stalk people online and find out information about them. Um, yeah. Um, One thing I found just that kind of dated the movie and made me realize how old it is. At one point, they're in the restaurant, and Tom Hanks is he's stacking sugar cubes because the dude's an architect, so he's making a building or something. Yeah, restaurants have not used sugar cubes in a long time. They use sugar packets now because sugar cubes were found to be very unsanitary because people played with them. And I remember reading something years ago about they had grabbed random sugar cubes from restaurants and did tests on them and found traces of urine because people would go to the bathroom, not wash their hands, and then they would play with the sugar cubes on the table. And that was especially irksome for me because when I used to go to restaurants with my parents when I was a kid, I used to eat those sugar cubes.
Oh.
Yeah, so yeah, that was kind of that was kind of off topic, but yeah, I just it just dated the movie a bit and made me laugh. But um, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Well, thank you a lot for sharing. I guess that's my goal, and I must start by saying stalking people is wrong.
Yes.
With that being said, that movie was fun. I don't have a lot to say, unfortunately, but it's still a fun experience, and I'm the one that kind of chose it because, again, it's a romance night and
Yeah.
it's a romance movie, and I heard about that movie a lot, but I didn't see it prior, so I was like, you know what? That's a classic, so let's talk about that classic. And here we are. I had two issues. The first one would be the romance itself between the final girl and the main character felt forced and contrived. They barely knew each other. Most of the movie was building another relationship that wasn't the final one. And again, I get they wanted to subvert expectation as aspect, but man, you spent an hour in a few minutes with these two characters and they barely exchange, and like in the last 10 minutes they fall in love. Are are you thinking, or do you think we are stupid? Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
No, I can see that point of view. Um, um, yeah, it's true that it was to subvert expectations, or maybe not
But
necessarily, because I think it was clear from the beginning that they would end up together at the end, but subvert the expectation of how that was going to happen.
yeah,
But it's true, yeah, that we spent this whole time building up, well, actually two relationships, Meg Ryan and her fiance, um, and Tom Hanks and the woman that he dated for a bit. I think it was the audience expected, yeah, those two relationships would not last, obviously, and that those two characters would ended up together at the end. But yeah, I can see your point of view on that.
yeah. My next issue would be pacing wasn't great. 15 to 20 minutes could have been cut, especially early in the movie.
He, I
I feel
agree.
like
I agree with that.
I feel
This
like
is
the start of the movie.
mhm. Well, this movie was I think an hour and 45 minutes. I think this would have comfortably fit in like 90 minutes. A couple of
Yeah,
things, yeah, could have been cut.
and I feel like it wasn't really an issue as we went on. It's really
Mm.
like the early part of the movie. It's like we kind of get to know the characters, but we kind of
I think one
spend.
thing that could have been cut or at least shortened is the dinner at the beginning with Meg Ryan and her
Yeah,
fiance, the getting to know these characters. I mean, I think that was an
definitely,
important scene to establish the characters, but I think some of it could have been trimmed.
definitely. This is exactly what I was thinking when I was
Mhm.
watching that. So these were my two issues, and I gotta say, we are in 1990 when we make that movie, and we had shift in society because marriage as a entity was slowly falling apart, and it
Yeah,
was
this is when divorce rates started to like really go up.
spike. Yeah, they started to spike, and the date,
I know several people who got divorced in this decade.
the dating scene,
My own parents.
the dating scene was changing. It,
Yeah.
it it was evolving into something else that's more similar to what we got today. And today is also very different because
Mm,
of dating online, but
mhm.
to some extent, the 90s were really the end of the long lasting relationships because it was now a casual thing to
Yeah.
just split up, and it was a casual thing to just think you can get a new relationship in a snap of a finger.
Yeah,
And
but also a lot of people started to realize that you no longer had to stay in dysfunctional relationships. Especially since now, especially for women who now a lot of them were in the workforce and everything and could you know provide for themselves. A lot of them just were no longer settled for crappy relationships out of
yeah,
necessity.
yeah. So with that thing being said, I think just like what you said, this movie is a product of its time.
Hmm.
If you grew up in the 90s like we both did, but you're older than me, but
Hmm.
like we still both grew up in the 90s. Relationship were changing, and that's really a product of its time, because I think
Hmm.
it reflects kind of very well the mind state of people in the dating
Hmm.
scene. So in one of my likes, nice depiction of the new dating scene from the 90s, and I think it did age very well, because we are still seeing parts of what we had in the 90s, but
Yeah.
much worse. It was also well depicted how the main character was stressed for his date, and it's something that's very relatable, especially when you're out of the dating scene for quite some time and you just come back into it.
Hmm.
It's stressful. It's like, I want that one to be the right one. I don't want to waste more time. It's relatable. It's very
I can
relatable.
relate. I'm not actively dating right now, but I was out of the scene for a long time, and I have been. And if I were to start up again, which I might, long story, but I think yeah, I think I would have to sort of educate myself and on how things are now, because I'm things change a lot. A lot of things have changed in the last it was, well, since this movie came out, and in the last few years with everything that got upended with COVID and just everything.
Even in the last 5 years, I will be
Yeah,
honest, like for 5 years I
yeah.
was single. Parts of it was by choice, and
Mhm.
parts of it was also because it's hard now.
Oh
And
yeah,
now
definitely.
I got a great relationship, I'm glad, and I'm kind of scared to get back to it. So like I will make sure it works out very
Mhm.
well. And um yeah, so it's changing, it's
Mhm.
evolving. Is it evolving in the right direction? I don't think so, but that's another topic for another day. But
Mhm.
um people not being perfect is a fact,
Mhm.
and that was one of the message that movie had. It was also well shown how the girl stalks the main character, the love interest. She stalks him, and that was well shown, depicted, and all. um and the kid, the kid, I
Mhm.
must address him. He was entertaining. I think he
Yes.
was well casted,
Yeah.
and I could see some kids being like him. Like, he is probably the weird kid in the bunch, but I think he is still the kind of kid that would exist with the kind of upbringing he had and the
Mhm.
backstory he has. And I think it made sense.
Oh, I thought
Um,
this. I just laughed my ass off though in the scene where he calls the radio show the second time when his father is on the date with the woman that he doesn't like, and and he's like, my dad's with a hoe. There's a hoe in my house or something like that.
uh,
I I thought that I just love that scene.
same here.
I
I
had
like it.
completely forgotten about that because I hadn't seen this movie in so long. But yes, this kid was very well casted.
I also think the humor in that
Hmm.
movie was great.
Yeah.
It aged very well, because
Hmm.
sometimes you get old comedies, are like, it didn't age well, but this one, it's not the case. It's good humor. It's a light-hearted movie. That's a fun trip. That's a fun experience, and I'm glad I have seen that movie. Unfortunately, again, I don't have a lot more to say. I think we covered lots of ground anyway.
Hmm.
Fun experience. Highly recommend if you haven't seen. It's about time you need to see it. I think I'm
Yeah.
way too late.
Yeah. And as I said, it's very unlike a lot of romantic comedies. It doesn't follow the standard formula.
That's true. With that being said, any things you'd like to add?
Um, no, not that I can think of.
Well, I guess this is the moment. What would be your grade out of 10?
For me, this is going to be an 8.5 out of 10.
Okay, we are kind of close.
Mm.
I had only two issues. This mean, I gave this solid 9.5 out of 10.
Mm.
I like that movie. That's a good movie, almost perfect. But the two
Mhm.
issues I had, they drag it down a bit for me. So fun experience. We had like 2 nights in a row talking about love movies, and
Mhm.
most of them kind of break the mold, as you say.
Mhm.
Um, Groundhog Day is a time loop. We don't see that often in love story. And one of them was filled with liars, and the other is, oh yeah, we set up a relationship that won't work, and we get another relationship in the end. Um, so that was it. Sleepless in Seattle and Groundhog Day were fun to watch. The 90s had great movies. With that being said, what do you have going on your end of the internet?
Um, not much. Well, this podcast. I am slowly, very slowly starting to develop maybe some other projects I'd like to do, but that is like far in the future.
Well, it's still there in your mind.
Yeah.
In my end of the internet, we must talk about politics tomorrow, or I should say I, because I don't know if others will join.
Mhm.
Canada had a tragic election day Monday. We must address that. And Thursday, I will talk about The Accountant, the new movie with John Bertal shooting people and saving kids from human trafficking, and that will be a very fun movie to talk about. And we also had the original Accountant, the first one, in the same night. So two action flick. With that being said, not that much is happening. Next week we talk about the MCU again with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and the Thunderbolt. The Thunderbolt is coming. Cannot wait. I am hyped for this. And with this, thank you a lot, Superbald, and we are out.
Yeah, that blue podcast. Come check the scene. Movies old and new. Know what I mean? The Red Blue Podcast. Come check the scene. Movies old and new. Know what I mean?